Our number 19 team, the Utah Utes. Filming this on July 23rd, let's take a look at the current odds as of today. To win the national championship, they are 60-1. To win the Big 12, they are plus 320. To make the college football playoffs, yes, minus 220. Excuse me, yes, plus 220. No, minus 300. Their season win total sits at 9.5. The over minus 145. The under plus 125. To go undefeated, yes, plus 475. No, minus 700. And Cam Rising, their Heisman quarterback candidate, 45-1. We always want to take a look back at last year's team to see how they compare coming into this year, if they're up or down, a lot of close wins, a lot of turnovers. And looking back at 2023, the Utah Utes went 8-5 straight up, 6-6-1 against the spread, and 5-8 over under. Yards per game diff, they were number 79, poor, plus only 0.12 yards per play. Listen to these offensive numbers. Yards per game, number 94. Points per game, number 96. The defense, number 13 yards, number 18 points per game. They played a difficult schedule, the number 20th toughest schedule last year. And you break in their efficiencies, they finished number 93 on offense, number 11 on defense. You know, they played all but one Power 5 team last year. The only non-Power 5 team they played was Weber State. They started off against wins against Florida and at Baylor to go 2-0, went to 4-0. Against Baylor, they did trail 13-6 into the fourth quarter, but they went 86-15, and after an interception, went 29 yards on 6 plays to score a winning touchdown with 1:18 left. In all, they had 5 regular season close games. They were fortunate to go 4-1 in those games. Against UCLA, they led 14-0 until UCLA scored a touchdown with about 3 minutes to go, so that game was not as close as the 7-point final. Against USC, they were tied at 14. They led 28-14, but then trailed 32-21 with 1:46 to go. They went 54 yards on 11 plays and kicked a 38-yard field goal on the final play of the game to beat USC 34-32. Against Washington, they led 28-24 into the fourth quarter, but Washington scored 11 unanswered in the final stanza to eke out a 35-28 win. And then their final close game was a win against Colorado. They led 13-10 into halftime. They led 20-10 into the fourth quarter. Colorado scored a touchdown with 7 minutes and 31 seconds to go, but the Utah running game ran out the last 7.5 minutes on a 12-play drive, taking a knee to win the game. Before we look at the 2024 team, thank you very much for taking the time to watch this video. I've got some great information at the end of this video in the Bettor's Edge segment. Make sure you check that. But do take a minute. Give us a thumbs up. We appreciate the like. Smash that like button if you prefer to smash it. And please share any comments you have. Do you think Utah can win the Big 12? Do you think they're overrated? What's your best bet amongst those season win futures we talked about at the beginning of the tape? Please do share. And again, remember, Gold Sheet 30, GS30, will save you $30 off a Gold Sheet full season football subscription. Head to goldsheet.com or wagertalk.com and remember that code, GS30. Taking a look at this year's Utah Utes, of course, from the Pac-12, now in the Big 12. They returned 13 starters, and let's take a look at our conference cheat sheet. They returned 13 starters. They're number 18 in our power ratings in the summer. Remember, the top team was Georgia. They are a 0, so that tells you how far apart we think they are from the Georgia Bulldogs. They are number 43 in Connolly's returning production. While they do return their quarterback, it was a quarterback from 2 years ago as Rising was hurt. We'll talk about that in a minute. And they're recruiting number 40th in the country, number 5 overall. Now, they did have 12 transfers. That's, as far as strength goes, that was 5th in the Big 12 as far as quality transfers where they're ranked. They returned 13 starters this year. And while that seems average, I do want to note that the last 3 years, Utah has returned 16, 14, and 19. So this is significantly fewer returning starters than Whittingham has averaged over the last few years. In the draft, they lost 5 players for 14 points. And when 5 players doesn't seem like much, the previous 2 seasons, they lost a total of 4 players. So again, you go from a team that lost 1 to the NFL draft to 3, now 5. That is another slight negative for the Utes. Their quarterback this year, Cam Rising. Cam Rising in 2022 completed 65%, a 26-8 touchdown to interception ratio, did rush for 466 yards and a 6.1 yards per carry with 6 TDs. He was expected to play last year. They kept putting him questionable the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season. They finally shut him down. So they don't return last year's starting quarterback, but they do return their 2022 version. They lose their number 1 running back, and Rose had 800 yards, 5.0 yards per carry. Excuse me, they lose their number 1 running back. His name was not Rose. That was just a mistake me saying that. Their number 2, Glover, is a guy I'm excited on. He was banged up last year. So even though they lose their number 1, I have them even with going into last year. Their receivers, they returned 2 and 3 of their top 5. So they were without number 1, number 4, and number 5. One of those was an NFL draft choice. So while they lose 3 of their top 5, they do get back a tight end that made 20-plus starts here a couple years ago. He also missed last year. So they have 2 legitimate returning starters back that missed last season. The O-line is missing 3 players that combined for 32 starts. So call that about 2.6 starters missed on the O-line. The defense returns their top 2 tacklers and 3 of their top 4. And while they only return 5 of their top 10 tacklers, when you look deeper, they return 14 of their top 19 on defense, so they're only missing 5 of their top 19 tacklers from last year's version of that stop unit. The D-line lost 1 starter. He was a number 3 draft choice to Denver. The linebackers are all back. The DBs lose 3, including a 2nd-round draft choice and a 4th-round draft choice. So while the defense is stacked, they do lose a few very important components. Let's take a look at the Utah Utes 2024 schedule. We have them ranked as the number 52nd toughest schedule this year. Highlighted in gray are those games between the 8s, from a +8 to -8. So any game within a touchdown and a 2-point conversion. You'll see that they are favored in 12 games this year, and they are favored by a touchdown or more in 7 games. I have them as a pick in the only game they're not a favorite, at Oklahoma State. So you break out the schedule, and again, you're a pick or a favorite in every game, and a fairly easy schedule has them at number 52. Let's take a look at their bye weeks. They have a bye before Arizona State. They have a bye before BYU. Arizona State, not in a horrible situation. They had a bye the week prior, then they host Kansas, and then they host Utah. And when you look at the BYU bye, BYU is also off a bye, so that negates the situation. On the flip side, there are 2 teams that have byes prior to playing Utah. Arizona has a bye prior to playing the Utes. Utah will be playing their 5th straight game, and they'll be playing their 2nd straight road game. And TCU also has a bye prior to playing Utah. Utah will have been off a bye and off a road game at Arizona State. And while I picked Kansas State to win the the Big 12. When you look at their schedule, you clearly see why they are the Big 12 favorite. The top 6 teams in the Big 12, including Utah, are Kansas State, Arizona, Iowa State, Oklahoma State, and TCU. Well, they don't play Kansas State, the next best team. They have teams, the next 2 best teams, Arizona and Iowa State at home. Then they play Oklahoma State on the road, and they play TCU at home. So of the top 6 teams, they do not play the next best. 3 at home, 1 away. Again, a favorable Utah situation. And finally, we always end every video with the bettor's edge, taking a look back against the spread and over-under. And Kyle Whittingham, by the way, the second longest tenured coach consecutively at the same school. You know who is the longest tenured? That would be Ferentz at Iowa. Kyle Whittingham now in his 20th season as the head coach. He went 3-9 against the spread his first year here 20 seasons ago. But since that, 124, 100 with 3 pushes. So if you blindly bet every Utah game since his opening season, you have cashed 54.3%. When you look at Utah at home, since 2017, excluding the COVID year, they are 26-14 against the spread. That is 65%. I don't expect them to be a home dog this year. They did only go 1-3 as a home dog in that stretch. And if they're a home favorite up to -10.5, so you could be a single-digit home favorite or a 10 or a 10.5 point home favorite, they've done very well when they're not having to lay a lot of points. 14-3, 82.4% against the spread. And how about this? 2 final notes on Kyle Whittingham. As a conference home favorite under Whittingham, Utah has gone 20-5, 80% against the spread their last 25 conference games. And this is the definition of a defensive dog. When they are an away dog of +6 or higher, they have gone a perfect 12-0 against the spread. The one factor that I'm going to bring out here for a best bet, I'm going to go back and take a look at the schedule again. On September the 28th, Utah hosts Arizona. You saw on the schedule that I had Utah -4. Those were the projected numbers based on the power ratings. Well, today, you can go to DraftKings and bet Arizona +9.5. So I have an Arizona team with 5.5 points value on that September the 28th game. And again, I talked about it's a great situation because Utah will be playing their 6th straight game. They'll be off a game at Utah State and off a game against Oklahoma State, one of their biggest Big 12 matchups they have. Arizona, again, will be off the bye. And while Arizona State does have to travel, while Arizona does have to travel here to Utah, they did play a game at Kansas State. So they will be road tested. I do like that they have a road game out of the way. So my best bet for this segment is actually fading Utah, taking Arizona plus the 9.5. That line is currently available. That game is September the 28th. Folks, we got a great special. Our football early bird at Wager Talk, just $777 for college football and the NFL. Check out the deals page. Take advantage of my early bird or for the gold sheet. Thank you for watching these videos. Please make sure you subscribe to Wager Talk TV. Find out what 163,000 people are doing watching Wager Talk TV, why we're so successful, and make sure you stay tuned to check out the rest of these videos.